After weather which could easily be described as 4 seasons in one day, we're here to discuss the crowded house at the top of League One. This is the Blue Monday podcast. Good evening. Hello. Welcome to the Blue Monday podcast, discussing all things Ipswich Town since 2015. My name is Craig Fimbo, and this is the live Q&A, where you guys steer the show, and where we end up, we end up. We don't care, really. They've left the kids in charge again. The boys are in charge of the sweet shop, and joining me this evening with his fingers in the cookie jar is Joe Fairs. How are you going, Joe?
Yeah, good. Yeah, had a sort of week and a half away. Now sort of back. First day back at work today. First day back on the podcast. Everything is coming at once.
Yeah, it's been a while. I think both you and I, we haven't been a while. I think we're in like this is like the equivalent of a behind closed doors friendly, isn't it? They've arranged it for us just so we can sort of get somehow
Some minutes in our legs.
Because
I have to admit, even now, I missed the game on Saturday because I've got a wedding in London on Saturday, so I missed the Charlton game. So I'm already devastated by that, and I'll be making sure I've got a signal to see me through the 3 till 5 p.m. period.
That is very bad planning on someone's behalf, isn't it?
Yeah, especially as an Ipswich fan, the groom.
Oh, my goodness, really?
Yes. So I will be I have had words already, but I'll be making sure I have further words on Saturday.
Stories of people surreptitiously watching and following matches at weddings is always a good one. One of my friends got married in Slovenia, Ljubljana, Lake Bled. We were on an island in Lake Bled, and it was the England-Sweden World Cup quarter-finals, would it have been? How many years ago that was? Yeah, and so we were sort of trying to follow it on our phones at the time. Yeah, that was a decent one. Right, say some hellos. Hello, good evening to you, Charlie. Yeah, we're all good, thank you. Matt's here. Good evening to you, Matt. Nick, good evening to you, Nick. Phil, Neil. We've got some the Telegram mob are here. FPL's here. Nige is here. Some non-Telegraph riffraff have turned up. Mullet's here. Good evening to you, Mullet. Hello, James. Hello, Kirk. Hiya, Skip. Hello, Flim Flam. Yeah, well, as Mullet says here, it's bare bones. Well, we're getting back up to speed, Mullet. You know, we're the Panucci Kamara and Dominic Ball of the podcast group. So, as Joe said, getting some minutes into our legs at the moment. So as I say, we've got no agenda here. Things were discussed in the post Cheltenham pod by the guys, and also Rich and Seb will be obviously discussing pre-match Charlton nearer the weekend. But before we start off, actually, I've got a little quiz for everyone. I went to New York at the last weekend, landed on Monday, and coming back, I was standing at JFK security in my socks, waiting for my tray to appear with the phone and all the bits and pieces, my belt. So I was holding up my trousers and not showing the holes in my socks. And standing next to me was a Hollywood, I'm going to say A-lister, certainly used to be an A-lister. Now he might be more of a B-lister. Anyway, he was standing next to me and I looked across and I looked at him. I looked up at him and I'm 6'3 3/4, as Adrian Mole may say. And he's taller than me, he towered over me, and he didn't have to take his shoes off. So he went whisking off into the whatever lounge it was. Transpires he was on the same plane as me. He didn't turn right when he got on the plane. He must have turned left. There's a little quiz for everyone. You've got to tell me who was this Hollywood star that was on my plane to Heathrow on Monday.
Can I have a guess?
You may have a guess.
Well, because just thinking pure height.
Don't get it right, though.
Vince Vaughn with the height.
It was not Vince Vaughn. There you go. Joe's had his one chance.
And it had an ITFC link with Tony Vaughan in there as well.
If people, he wasn't sold to Manchester City. No, I'm trying to think if there's a link to Ipswich Town. There's a link. Well, no, I can't give that. That'd be a clue too far if I give that clue. So yes, if people want to have a go and try and guess who it was, I'll drop some clues in during the course of the evening, as it were. Yeah, so what we talked about, Kamara, we spoke of it, didn't we? So there was an under-21 game, wasn't there, yesterday? 4-1 they lost, didn't they, Bristol City? But Kamara's edging his way back, Joe, which can only be good for the next few games for the run-in.
Yeah, and both Kamara and Humphreys were the first teams involved in that game. So, yeah, just good to get minutes in his legs. It doesn't feel like we'll see much of Kamara this season, does it? For the last 6 games, I'd imagine this is just get minutes into his legs to come back in pre-season next year. But barring a sort of injury crisis in the middle, I'd imagine the pecking order is going to be Morsy and Luongo. Seems like Dominic Ball is next, Lee Evans. I'd imagine even will be Cam Humphreys before we see Kamara. So something's gone badly wrong, unless things go incredibly right and we're able to give him a game at Fleetwood on the last day of the season while we're just working out the procession to walk along Blackpool Beach with the trophy come sort of Sunday afternoon.
Is Lee Evans further down the road to recovery? Is he? Can't say I've seen much about it being away from
back on the grass, so to speak, or about. We've gone from back in the grass to ready to join the main group. I think that is the now new lingo for fitness now, and I think he is ready to join the main group.
Oh, really? Oh, I didn't know that. But it's quite interesting, actually. Is he a bench option though? That's the thing, I suppose, because he can only really play in one singular position, can't he?
Yeah, it does seem that McKenna likes to have his forward players on the bench, the 4 forward players, so we can change all of those, which means you put Janoy Donatian on the bench because he can cover right back, centre back, and left back, or mainly right back and left back. And then you have Don Ball as well because he can cover probably right-sided centre back, and central midfield. So those 2 players cover the whole of the back 6 or back 7, including the keeper. And then we have the front 4 to replace the front 4.
Yeah, exactly. Right, just a few more hellos. Hello, Michael. Hello from Brisbane, which has reminded me my friend Tim is coming over from Australia. He'll be landing anytime now, so he's going to be at the last few games. So hi to Michael. Good evening to you, James, and to Chris, and to Mark. Here we go. Here's the first one. Look, when Michael's sister got married, all the men were in the car park listening to Ipswich versus Man U on the car. What year are we talking about there then, Michael? Go on, give us a clue. Was it Fabian Wilness, Man U, or was it George Burley, Man U? Yeah, Charlie, nice. And David, good evening to you, David. Thank you very much for that. Thank you for your, as ever, for your super chat. See you in the Greyhound for the Exeter game. Oh, David's coming back over. Yeah, that'll be. So you're back over for the promotion party at Exeter and guaranteed championship trophy presentation. Really, I suppose it is. Right, some guesses coming in regards to who I saw. It was not Dolph Lundgren, although he is very large. James, there's no need for that. I said I'm 6'3 3/4, not 4'2 3/4. Stephen Merchant, Phil has come in with no. He's an American. I'll give you that one. And Gary's asking about if it's Hollywood's LA or Hollywood's in Ipswich. No, it wasn't any of the early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s Ipswich squad. It was a bona fide Hollywood star. He's probably got his star somewhere, actually, as it goes. So what else we had? Nominations, haven't we? We had the League One nominations, Joe. We had Kieran McKenna, obviously, has been nominated for manager along with Schumacher and Moore. I suppose that will. Do they?
I think they do it before the end of the season, which is a bit of a mockery, really, because I think if you look at those 3 for the season they've had up to this point so far, I think Stephen Schumacher is probably the one that gets the nod because he's obviously working with a smaller budget than the other 2, and Plymouth are currently second, are they, at the moment, I think. But if Plymouth subsequently come third, I don't think he should win. I think one of the top 2 wins it, and the players of the season, look at that: Barry Bannon, Johnson Clark-Harris, and Aaron Collins. Well, yeah, Clark-Harris scored a few goals but I imagine it's a pretty disappointing season for Peterborough so far. They seem to have salvaged it recently. Aaron Collins has done well, but what's he done? Dragged Bristol Rovers from 17th to 12th. I think
it does seem strange that in a season which potentially is going to have 3 teams getting mid 90 points, that only one of those teams' players is included in the top 3 players of the season.
But yeah, I think Michael Cooper possibly would have been had he not been injured for the second half of the season. And obviously you've got the likes of Morgan Whittaker, who was probably one for somebody who looked at the stats, 11 goals in the first half of the season. Had he stayed there and got 20 and Plymouth been in that sort of top two still, maybe he was one that would have been nominated. But yeah, it just seems a bit of a folly, really, when you see the sort of season that Sam Morsey's had, that Leif Davis has had, even Connor Chaplin.
Yeah.
These players are, for me, yeah, there's a better team around them, but you've got to be an 8 or 9. Like for me, Sam Morsey's 8 or 9 out of 10 every week, but you just don't get the recognition in his role. Maybe Leif Davis as well in that left back role isn't going to get it, but I know individual awards are a bit of a folly, aren't they? Really. And even when you look at Cameron Humphreys, yeah, he's done brilliantly to be nominated, but he's played 10 league games this season, and he's nominated. Well, surely, I know, like someone like not high in the league, but like Ronnie Edwards at Peterborough, who's played every game for them, centre half, had a good season, still getting in the England squad. You'd think he'd be there, wouldn't you? But
yeah, and you would think that he would probably be finishing third behind Raksaki and Bali Mumba out of the three of them. Bless you. Preemptive blessing then. I hope you noticed. So just a few more guesses we've had here. Michael's gone for Tom Cruise on a ladder. No, it was not. Don't be facetious, Michael. There's no need for that. Ryan Reynolds, FPL. You need to go and check IMDb. I'm bloody sure Ryan Reynolds isn't 6'4" tall, and I certainly know from Escape to Victory that Sylvester Stallone isn't 6'4". Nige, he's a diminutive Laurie Civil like character. Steven Seagal says Tangfastic. No, it wasn't. Yes, Charlie. Google it, my friend, and you may find it. What Chris has got here, I'm just going to pop up to see Chris's comment here. And to be fair, Chris, you're the one in the know. You should be telling us whether this is going to be enough. 4 wins and a draw for 95 points. Will it be enough? Well, yeah. If people could, have their own say in the chat, we'll get it up. But the 538, isn't it? Is the what the EADT described as the supercomputer boffins was their descriptor. I don't know what a boffin looks like nowadays, like an old Tefal, large four-headed guy in a white overcoat. But they've suggested that, and if I got some screenshot here, bear with me, everybody. They've suggested that we are now favourites to get promoted, and indeed favourites to win the league. It's a 39% probability for us to actually win the league, and there's a 30% probability for us finishing second. So my rudimentary maths would tell me that they reckon there's a 69% chance of us finishing in the top 2. Now, not all of us amongst the pod fraternity are as openly positive, shall we say, and don't wish to jinx stuff. But I don't mind jinxing things. Rich may suggest otherwise. But what do you reckon? What is the question that everyone's asking? I suppose is what we're going to need to secure one or two.
Yeah, I think that 95 will definitely be enough. I don't think, like I say, it's shown at 94 at the moment. And one of the interesting things on that 538 graphic was the SPI, which is basically the strength of the team they see at the moment. And we are the strongest team in the league at the moment. And the best team in the league, Plymouth, are struggling, but they still think they're going to get to 94 points by having an easier run in. But this week is the important one. If you see, we've got home games against Charlton and Port Vale, 2 games we just absolutely have to win, 6 points there. And you look at Plymouth and they travel to Exeter on Saturday, big local derby, and then they've got Shrewsbury at home on the Tuesday. Well, by this point next week, I think we'll be top of the league by this point next week. And if we are, then that league table pressure you can just exert on teams. Like you look at Plymouth, they've got a fantastic home record, won 17 out of 19, and then lose 2-0 at home to Lincoln on Monday. And they were lucky to get away with 2-0. That was a shellacking from Lincoln against them. They battered them, really. As soon as they scored, Plymouth just did not get back in the game, and Schumacher chucked a lot of mud at the wall trying to get that to turn around and made substitutions, but just didn't get anywhere with it. And it's just so important, these next 2 home games, isn't it? And I think that the running, whilst we've got the 2 tough away games coming sort of to follow after that with Peterborough and Barnsley, we can do so much damage to the other teams by winning these 2 home games. And, well, like I say, we're going to be heavy favourites to win them. And I think if we win both of them, we'll get up.
I think, as you say, Plymouth obviously got a relatively tricky away game, which Exeter will be trying to derail their promotion hopes. But Shrewsbury have absolutely fallen off a cliff, haven't they? I think their aggregate in the last 4 games is conceded 13 and scored 1. So you've got to really hope that they can turn that around for that the second of those 2 away games. Wednesday, I've got Burton, and obviously Burton beat Barnsley over Easter, so there's a chance there. And Bristol Rovers are up and down, and as we know, they can stifle teams.
They always seem to be able to set up a decent game plan. I find Bristol Rovers, like Joey Barton, especially against the bigger teams, he seems to. They almost seem to get his juices flowing, so he wants to set something up to prove that he should be at one of those bigger teams in the league. And I don't know, like I say, you look at the next 2 games, and we've got a real chance to be sort of top and a couple of points top by the come sort of this time next week.
Yeah, absolutely. Just have a quick look and see what other people have thought. There's a few actor guesses coming. I haven't seen the correct answer yet. Alex thinks we'll get 91 and it might be enough for second. I'm not. That seems a bit skinny to me, Alex. 91.
It's only 3 wins, isn't that, 6?
Yeah, the games that others have got. Phil reckons that 93 should be enough. David's gone for 95. Good evening to you, Jules. Hope you're okay. Philip said here, win all 3 home games puts us on 91 with 2 or 3 points from 3 away games. You'd think that's going to be the case. Yeah, let me just have a quick look up here in terms of the actor. I'm going to give you guys a clue in a second. Chevy Chase, no. Tom Hanks, no. Jason Segel, no. Samuel L. Jackson, no. Will Ferrell, no. Ben Affleck, no. This guy was in one of the top, he's very regularly in the top 5 films ever made. There you go. It's like, 90-odd% on Rotten Tomatoes and over 9.5 out of 10 on IMDb. So there's another little clue for you. In terms of rumours, well, there were some rumours come out as well, weren't there, Joe? Alan Nixon reckons that we're going to sign Adam Armstrong when we get promoted to the Championship.
Yeah, strange, wasn't it? When you think that 2 weeks ago he linked us with Colby Bishop, and then after that we're now linked with Adam Armstrong. So we've gone for a player that Portsmouth signed for 500,000 to play in League One this summer, to a player that Southampton signed for 15 million to play in the Premier League 2 years ago. I don't know. I remember this time last year when they were talking about our recruitment, and there was talk that Ipswich could go out and break their transfer record. And I think it was Gareth Ainsworth, wasn't it? He was in the Sky studio for one game, and he said, "Oh, when you hear some of the stuff about Ipswich and what their recruitment's going to be like this summer, we're never going to be able to keep up with them." And whilst the recruitment was obviously excellent, fee-wise, you're talking in the summer £1 million for Leif Davis, really, weren't you? As the big fee, nothing like the sort of 4, 5, 10 odd £1 million that you need to sign an Adam Armstrong. And I just don't see how we'd be able to get fees like that to work within the sort of financial fair play regulations, because we're already losing the sort of money it takes that you can lose a year, the sort of 13 million a year. But so I don't see how we're going to be able to go out and spend monster fees unless you get the deals done this side of June if we get promoted, or sorry, this side of the end of June if we get promoted. But personally, for me, I just don't see we're going to be spending that sort of money on players, especially players that have had a big move, failed, and are dropping back down, because ultimately you're looking to sort of buy players to trade upwards, aren't you? Not to, because how much is Adam Armstrong going to cost? 7, 8, 9, 10 million pounds, and how much are you going to be able to sell him for if he scores 20 goals in the Championship? Well, we've already seen him score 20 goals in the Championship.
Yeah. But that was a question I was going to ask, actually, is if it were to happen, when would you have to sign them by? And you've already answered it in terms of it. You're trying to get it into
June the 30th, isn't it?
This season's financial restrictions rather than next season.
Yeah, I'd imagine if we go out, we'll be looking at George Hurst. You'd imagine he's a player that we we've tried to get into the building for a long time, and if we get him in, we want to be keeping him in, especially with the way he's been playing as well. I can't see that there's going to be a huge amount of monster signings if we get promoted. I'd imagine it's sort of 2 or 3 through the spine of the team.
Yeah, that's a question for everyone. Actually, you know, what areas of the team, you know, Rich is going to tell me off here. Should we get promoted?
When we get promoted,
what areas of the team are people more looking at to improve and to strengthen? Because as Joe says, you know, the bulk of the team's there, but I think you probably do need a little sprinkling of stardust, or, you know, just that next level up in certain positions. Just going forward to the weekend, Charlie's asking if we'll see more of Edwards if Broadband isn't back at the weekend. Obviously, he came on at the weekend. Came on Monday. Excuse me, at half time, and did all right in fits and starts. Certainly was a bit more direct and did a bit more than Marcus Harness did while he was on the pitch. But I don't know whether he's completely entrusted to start games at the moment. Joe, what do you reckon?
It doesn't seem like it does. I still think it seems that Harness is ahead of him in that pecking order for that role, but he's just not quite with it, Harness, is he? But he's always been quite not flaky player, but he's one that
hot and cold,
but bounces around, and he always seems to land on the ball in good positions. And sometimes his finishing's excellent, and sometimes it's not. So it's one of those ones where if his finishing is poor, his final ball is poor, he looks like he's had a bad game. So he's one of those players that he can press really well, he can win the ball, but his movement is obviously very good, and positioning, because he gets the ball in really good situations. He always lands on the ball in good situations. I think you've just got to let him try and play himself back into form if he can, because whilst Kyle Edwards has been very good, I don't think he gives you what Harness gives you with regards to the team structure.
Yeah. And as Kirk's got a question here about Broadhead, Phil replied to saying he thinks he's still being assessed. FXT Blues, good evening to you. No Broadhead, no promotion, he believes. So, yeah, it has shown that, and Ben's spoken about it himself, hasn't he, in terms of Broadhead's introduction in January, and, you know, once he's got fully up to speed, how important he's been to the team. I think there was someone on Twitter earlier was put up the starting 11, which is yet to draw or indeed lose a match. The starting 11 that we've had, and obviously Broadhead's included in that. In terms of the guesses, someone has got it right. I'm sad to report. So I will just play this short advert, and then on our return, I will let you know who it was.
Innovation Labs is business hub and co-working space with strategic locations across Suffolk. Our aim is to foster innovation, entrepreneurship, business growth, and the development of an AI centre of excellence in Suffolk. Monthly hot desks are available from just £79. For more info, head to innovationlabsgroup.com or contact info@innovationlabsgroup.com. Innovation Labs, providing support for businesses across Suffolk. Locations in Stowmarket, Ipswich, Sudbury, Woodbridge, with more to follow.
Was that slick enough for you? That was like prime Ken Bruce. Now he's on commercial radio, wasn't it? Heading through to ads. Not that I get the ads, because I've got Greatest Hits Premium. Right. Yes, someone's got it. Let me find out who it was. 2 people have got it. Apologies. I know Phil had it, and also Howard looks like he's got it. It was Tim Robbins. Yes, indeed.
From Austin Powers 3.
Indeed. And obviously Shawshank Redemption, but he was in some decent other things. Jacob's Ladder was a good film, I remember. Arlington Road's a good one as well, when he's the next door neighbour who's planting bombs and stuff like that. Oh, spoiler alert. There's no prizes.
Brilliant TWTD cover of the Sheepshank Redemption.
Yes,
which was the first issue when we got promoted to the Premier League. And I had mine signed by Kevin Keegan on the day of the Ipswich versus Manchester United first home game in the Premier League, because he was down to watch that game in his role as England manager.
So in an Ipswich Manchester United game, you had Kevin Keegan sign your David Sheepshanks inspired fanzine.
Absolutely. I was only 15 at the time, so it's made more sense back then.
But in terms of prizes, I'm afraid, guys, there aren't any. I've got here, look, some Crunch Cookie I've been to America, you can tell. Some Crunch Cookie M&Ms and also a cookie dough Twix. That's my my little treat for the week. Here, we were talking about signing players and bits and pieces like that if we were to get promoted. Lee's asking, would you really pay £15 million for a striker who scored 4 goals in 61 appearances? I just don't. It's interesting actually just where these stories come from. There must be a kernel of truth or something somewhere that someone's mentioned in passing. Just it's strange where these stories rise up from, really, isn't it? Michael, yeah, we were talking about positions where we think need strengthening. Michael's gone for a centre half, presumably a left-footed centre half. Michael,
I'd imagine so, just because we've signed Harry Clark as the sort of the right-sided guy, haven't we? We spent a lot of money on him, and then I think if you look at the sort of athletic profile of Luke Wolfenden and Cameron Burge, I think Luke Wolfenden is the one who you'd expect to be more able to step up into the Championship, and Cameron Burgess may not, with regards to the sort of speed on the turn and the sort of just the pure explosiveness of Championship strikers. But he's doing well, and I think he wouldn't let you down if you get there. But I think that's an area where you want to have a little bit more from in the team.
You'd think that he'd probably move more into the Dynasty and just step back and be the cover sort of role, wouldn't you? And certainly when you look at the other 3 guys who are currently in the back 4 in Clark, Wolfenden and Davis, they're all of a certain age and athleticism, and you'd think that they'd ideally be trying to get something along similar lines. So yeah, Phillips along the same lines. Alex has got the same. Neil's gone for a striker and a centre back. And in terms of that, Nige has asked, how much for Hurst to sign, do we think? I suppose that may depend on which division Leicester end up in.
Yeah, and also his contract may depend on that, because if Leicester get relegated, he may have a clause in his contract which brings his wage down to a more manageable level for us. I don't feel like Leicester are going to want to have a look at them. I think if we can offer a sort of 2 to 3 million, that sort of fee, if we go up, I'd imagine that'll be enough to get him out of there, because I think Leicester are in a bit of trouble financially as well. When you look at, since their previous owner died, and obviously King Power is it's like duty free at airports, isn't it? And obviously their business has been massively impacted by COVID and the fact that it's still not, the sort of airline industry is not back to what it was and probably never will be. So it's really hurt them on that side. So it wouldn't surprise me if Leicester just feel the need to cash in, and we are able to nab him away from there. And I'm sure we will be trying to do so. Yeah. And then there's obviously the confirmed interest in Jack Taylor we made in the January window. Sort of Darren McAnthony seems to mention it every week in the pod that they turned down 4 bids from it, and that sort of got up over 2 million, but he's worth 3 to 4 million. Well, he's going to have less time in his contract, but Peterborough could be in the Championship as well then, and if they are, then that's going to be a tough deal to do. But if Peterborough don't get promoted, I think he's definitely one that we'll be looking to spend a significant chunk of change on.
And they might need some money to pay the players' wages as well, I suppose. Mullet's gone for a huge shopping list. He wants a new goalkeeper, a new centre back, a new number 10, and a new striker. We're going to need to get that done, as Joe says, before the end of June. Otherwise, not entirely sure how we're going to afford them all.
I'd imagine once you get into the Championship, though, we probably would start looking in the loan market, because when you look at Burnley, they've got a couple in from Man City, haven't they? Harwood Bellis and another one. Sheffield United have got McAtee and Doyle in from Man City. Middlesbrough have got loan players in from, is it Arsenal? They've got one for Arsenal. But when you're in that sort of top end Championship teams, it does seem that the very, very elite loan players are the ones that you need to use to get over the line. As much as we'd all prefer to do it with our own players, I don't think it's possible when you look at the very top end of the Championship and you see the quality of the players that they're getting in from the Man Cities, the Chelseas, the Tottenhams, the Arsenals, the Liverpools,
and they are the ones that are making a difference to those teams as well, aren't they?
Yeah.
Now that we've answered my triv question of the day. There was in the Telegram group we were discussing after the Cheltenham match and after the goal, Connor Chaplin's goal and Harry Clark's throw-in. Seb called it hooned, which is a word I've never heard before. He described on the post-match pod he was hooned into the box. Now, Ben on the Telegram, he gave us a challenge, Joe, didn't he, of dropping in various describing words of how to throw. So hoofed, larruped, host was one of them, wasn't it? Huzzed. Yeah.
I don't think we had a howitzer in there, did we?
No. You got. If anybody can think of any more, wanged was one. Be careful. In terms of how you can describe something that's slung into the box as well. We're sort of entering into football cliche territory here and dissecting what is what can be described as a kick.
You normally describe it as something like you describe it as an Exocet missile, wouldn't you? As opposed to Exocet missiled it into the box.
Yeah, but I think
you turn that into a verb.
Well, Mullet's the educated one amongst us. He's an intellectual. He might be able to let us know. So consider that challenge accepted and completed, Ben. You owe Ben, you owe Joe and I a beer. Michael's saying that he really wants Harness to start playing well. He needs a goal or two, and that's what he was providing, wasn't it? But before Christmas, before Broadhead started, he was one of the more likely options to pop up and get you that goal, wasn't he?
He was, and he hasn't scored for now 22 games, is it now? I think the last goal he scored was against Exeter on the TV, which feels a lifetime ago, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Was that even before the clocks went back? So they've sort of gone back and
gone back
forward again.
Forward again, yeah.
But no, I think he's one that you just need to give him that chance to, because I think he just offers you more than Edwards in the game, and Edwards is a better sub coming off the bench as well. But fingers crossed, Nathan Broadhead is fit for the game. That's who we all want to see, isn't it? That's why we've paid $1.5 million for a player who's 25 in January to get us out of this league this season, not to miss too many games with injury, because that is probably one of the reasons why he's played so few games in his career, and why he was available to a League One side, because he's got a very checkered injury history.
Yeah. Charlie D saying if we go up to sign Hurst, sign Luongo and a Championship centre half. It'd be interesting about Luongo. I suppose he'll be another year older, and then you'll have two centre midfielders who are around about 30 years old, I suppose. Don't you? It's just getting that. As you're saying about Taylor from Peterborough, it's just getting that equivalent. What we're talking about, the back four being of a certain stature and a certain athleticism. It's getting that all throughout the team, I suppose. You may lose that if you have Luongo and Morsey in there in the Championship. A two-footed centre-half, Michael wants. Crikey, moon on a stick territory here, Michael. Or maybe Don Ball will drop into the back four. Yeah, potentially. He's played a lot of football in the Championship, the vast majority of his football in the Championship, hasn't he? Philip reckons that Hurst will be £5 million plus. Well, as I say, the thing is, as we've spoken about before on the pod, is how many clubs in the Championship can afford to pay a fee, of £3 million plus if Leicester do need to sell. Not many, and the ones that do may not, maybe setting their sights higher than.
Because you're talking about the sort of parachute clubs who are going to be the clubs right at the very top of the league, and they're going to need an instant player to come in and score goals at them straight away. Where I think Hurst is maybe still probably seen as a project at that level. Yeah.
Lee's saying that you've already mentioned him in one respect or another, cash in. Can't say I've seen much of him, but he looked like he was running in treacle.
I think he'd be someone that would probably go to that level. He's been very impressive this season, although he'd struggled to deal with Wes Burns running at him on sort of a couple of Saturdays ago, didn't he? But I think he's one that will, if he leaves Derby, will be going the big move ahead of us, maybe to sort of like a Brighton and loan back down from into the Championship. But I don't think he's a player that we'd be able to get, because I think the fee's going to be out of our range.
Interesting. Adam, I'm sorry, mate. You're not allowed to come up with the guesses after the answer's been given. I'm afraid that's one of the rules, stipulated rule. But yes, you are correct. It was Tim Robbins. Chris has asked a question here. And I'm going to substitute the word Saturday for Monday. Do you think that Monday was A, just a one-off performance blip, B, a weather-affected lottery, or C, a worrying Oh, Chris, a worrying has Rich been writing your messages? A worrying return to those shaky away performances at small grounds. Have we got many of those more to come? Small ground away games? I suppose last game of the season. What? Go on.
I think we did enough to win the game, but Cheltenham, you look at their home record, it's pretty decent as well, isn't it? As well as it's not an easy ground to play at. It's a big slope on the pitch, windy day, pretty poor pitch, very narrow pitch, isn't it, as well, which for a side that wants to play football doesn't suit us, because we very much rely on getting the ball wide, getting the ball into those spaces out there, switching the ball quickly. And I think it's just one of those ones, when you looked at the fixture list, it did look like a sort of quite a trap game in there to me, didn't it?
Yeah, and there, I was listening using the Cheltenham commentary actually, and they were very, very complimentary of Ipswich, and certainly very complimentary of our centre midfield, and even more complimentary of Sam Morsey. And they were very fair, even, balanced. They're one of the better commentary teams that I've listened to. But they did say that they've tended to raise their games against the teams that are higher up in the division, and really struggled against teams who are in and around them in the league. So, and as has been shown by some of their results, isn't it, is that they've done well against teams that are up there at the top of the league. Question from Michael: do you think any of our wide players are of Championship standard? I suppose it depends what you determine as being our wide players. I suppose Wes Burns is a little bit hot and cold, up and down, isn't he? Sometimes he looks like a bona fide League One player, and then other times when he gets to open his legs and run at people, he does look a little level. He's an international footballer after all.
But also, I was just looking at some stats today, and Wes Burns, just in the league for us since he signed, so I think there's more because he scored at least once in the Cup, across sort of 70 games as a lot of time spent at wing back as a wide player, 19 goals and 17 assists, which is a hell of a record for a player in that role. Like this season, he's got 10 assists and 7 goals. He's sort of pretty close to the sort of famed double of 10 goals, 10 assists, which not many players get. I think only Aaron Collins has got that in the Championship so far. I think maybe just because he didn't hit the heights of form earlier in the season, he's maybe been a little bit underrated for the role he's actually played this season, especially since, sort of the end of the January transfer window, when you see he then had to learn to play with Harry Clark behind him. And since, the last few games, he's been on absolute fire, hasn't he? And even in the early part of the season, he was the one popping up with the big goals, scored against Portsmouth, the winner there, the winner against Derby, scored against Plymouth at home. He seems to pop up with the big goals at the big moments, and 5 assists in 5 games up till now. And I think he's one that will maybe grow a bit more as a player than we expect to. He seems to sort of just relish every challenge he's got at the moment, doesn't he?
Yeah, and also the beginning of the season, we obviously set up a little bit differently, because all of a sudden we had someone who was equally as efficient on the left-hand side, who could take some of the burden that was purely on Burns' shoulders last season.
And Burns has now got 1 assist less than Leif Davis, who's been heralded as this brilliant player. And a lot of Davis's assists from corners. I'm not saying they don't count or anything like that, but if Wes Burns was taking every set piece, you'd expect him to have picked up 3 or 4 more assists, wouldn't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Just some examples of what people reckon we can use. Hold, is that a thing? You're proper Suffolk, Joe. Have you heard the word hold?
I haven't heard it.
Making crap up now, Mullet, I'm afraid. Now, Nigel's gone for Wellied. I'm going to argue that Wellied and also Charlie D's Leathered are foot initiated entrances into the box rather than hand initiated.
Or an impact. I think you could lever a header, maybe just about.
You think?
Maybe. I think it just needs something like to hit into something to give the force, where a throw is different because you have the momentum and you.
Yeah. FPL's gone for I think we're just making up words now. Luzzed. Charlie D and Jules have both gone for fizzed.
I think that works. I think it just works.
Yeah. Michael's gone for flunged. See, launched again is maybe a foot initiated You launch a throw-in, do you? I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway.
If you can launch a rocket, you can launch a throw-in.
In terms see, this is what people could turn up to listen to, this sort of crap. McSaucepan. Harness looked sharp the last game he came on sub, couldn't get into the game at Cheltenham though. I think to be fair, that's been a sort of a struggle for a lot of our subs. Really, is getting up to speed immediately into games and having an immediate impact in matches. Ladapo obviously struggled a little bit at times, didn't he? But I think he's starting to get used to that role now because he's needing to play it a little bit more.
I think it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because especially in recent weeks, the game's almost been over by the time they've come on. So they're attacking players that are coming on. And so someone like Harness or Kyle Edwards is carrying the ball down the left-hand side, but they haven't got Leif Davis busting the gut to get past them on the left because we're 2-0 up or 3-0 up. And so the players aren't making the runs that they would be doing if the game is still tight. So it's very hard to judge. And I think the biggest part of their role is taking minutes out of the legs of the starters, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
Keeping the team shape going. And
once these guys come on, there's invariably another substitution being made 5 minutes later, even if it's by the opposition, and the game's just stop, start for the last 20 minutes or so of the match. Certainly, if hopefully we've got the lead at some point. Just a quick one from me, sort of referring back to Chris's point about Monday's match, is how Walton's mistake is going to potentially affect him, because I think. And I'm always one for backing up goalkeepers for various reasons, but obviously it was a mistake on Walton's behalf. It doesn't detract from the fact that we missed 2 or 3 pretty good opportunities, which get lost in the noise of a goalkeeping error. But pretty soon afterwards, he came herring out his box, didn't he? And he obviously lost his head a little bit. I just hope that it doesn't affect him long term, and that he regresses back to. Can you regress to his normal high standard, or do you regress back to something? Anyway, hopefully he gets back to how he has been for the last 2 or 3 months, rather than the previous 2 or 3 months before that. Charlie D's asking who leaves in the summer. Well, there are plenty at the moment who aren't getting anywhere near the squad, aren't there, Joe? People like Kane Vincent-Young's.
Well, I guess the obvious ones are Sonny Aluko, Richard Keogh and Kane Vincent-Young are the 3 who are out of contract, and
Clankey.
Yeah, but those 3 are out of contract and not getting anywhere near the team, are they? So you'd imagine those 3 aren't going to be here. Well, certainly not going to be here in a playing capacity next season. It might be different for Richard Keogh in the sense that he might be around here in the coaching team or something along those lines. But I don't know. I think it will depend on what division we're in, because even though, for example, someone like Janoy Dinashin has signed a new contract, if we go up to the Championship, is he someone that maybe you look to pick up a small fee for, or those lines? We've obviously got the centre of midfield is it's an area that looks very overstacked with Sam Morsey, Massimo Luongo if he's going to sign a new contract, Lee Evans, Dominic Ball, Raheem Harper. Cameron Humphreys, Panucci Kamara, Idris El Mazouni. There's a lot of bodies there, isn't there? And we are going to need to sort something with that.
Yeah. The data dashboard or whatever it's called will be in full flow. Howard's wondering whether we need a more experienced centre back than Cash in to play with Wolf. Yeah, very, very possibly. I say it will just be very interesting to see, as and when we do. If and when we do get promoted, is how quickly we get our signings through the door. Obviously, that's one of the benefits, isn't it, Joe, of going up automatically. Is you haven't got to wait another 2 or 3 weeks till the end of May to either see if you are or aren't going up.
Yeah, and that is going to be so key, especially if there is major investment potentially available, that we give ourselves 7 weeks to do that recruitment rather than 4 weeks to do it.
Yeah. There's one interesting one here from Mullet about the loanees out at the moment. Is Baggett the only one that we will keep? I suppose they'll look to keep him and then loan him out again and hopefully get some minutes in League One.
Yeah, and I think it's probably still a bit too early to write off Corey Ndaba and Idris El Mazouni, because both of them seem to. Well, Idris El Mazouni's had a fantastic loan spell at Leyton Orient. He's still 21, is he? I think he's
21,
is,
22,
and
maybe.
I don't see why you wouldn't. He's got another year on his contract. Why you wouldn't just try and put him into a League One. If he's not going to be deemed good enough to come into the Ipswich Championship side, why are you not going to put him into try and get him a loan to a League One side, especially if Leyton Orient go up? That's a really easy opportunity to send him to that club, because they would definitely have him there because he's been superb for them. And when you, I think it's one of the Telegram posters Jack has posted in there before about when you look at the current squad, where they were at these sort of ages, 2021, like Sam Morsey was still in League Two with Port Vale at that age. Lee Evans, I think, had gone up to Sheffield United in the Championship and sort of failed and dropped back down at that point. Sort of Dominic Ball hadn't really played a huge amount of football at that age. Connor Chaplin was in and out of the Portsmouth side at that age. And it's like, I think we have to remember that just because we've got the finished articles there, if we can do what Brighton do, which has sort of worked out very successful for them, and their sort of buy to loan model, where they'll see a player who's doing well for a League Two side, buy him, leave him in League Two for a season, leave him in League One for a season, in the Championship for a season, and then so you sort of own their rights to give them the development path to set up so that you can sort of take advantage of it when they get to that stage, as opposed to, like I say, for example, if Idris El Mazouni goes into League One next season, has had a good year as he's had in League Two next year, he's a player that we'd be looking at if we're a Championship side, and his fee would be £3 to £4 million. Well,
yeah,
no, you need to retain the rights to these players. I think Corian Darbo's got a bit of a future as well. Again, he's another player that you want to maybe try and get a good League One move sorted for him. He had a bit of a stop-start season with injury at Burton, but he seems to be playing regularly at Fleetwood in the second half of the season. If you can get him a decent League One loan again next year, again, another young defender. He's still younger than Leif Davis was, and Leif Davis has played about 4 career games up until this season. So it is just a case of really trying to make sure that the young players get good loan moves, good experiences, so that they could potentially come into our squad when they are ready for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things, as you mentioned, Leif Davis there, and his lack of gains before he joined us, that he is, I've said it before, that he's the poster boy of the data dashboard, isn't he, in terms of them looking at the stats and his potential purely from an analytic perspective, rather than what's the word for actual hard evidence on a pitch perspective, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, it's a funny one though, because you've signed 2 fullbacks effectively from Premier League clubs, one for each side of the pitch, both for sort of over £1 million. But Harry Clark is a player that's gone off and played 100 odd, maybe even more than that, maybe 150 career games on loan so far. Leif Davis had played about 8 on the other side, but yet they've both come in. They've both been identified by the same system, the same scouts, and they've both come in and made an immediate improvement to an area of the team which maybe we didn't think would happen.
Yeah, or maybe certainly from the right back perspective, it wasn't entirely obvious that that's an area that we needed to, glaringly obvious that we needed to improve. Question here from Chris: is Leif Davis likely to be able to run a whole side of the pitch like he does in League One, or will we need a left winger? Well, I suppose you've got Broadhead nominally over that side of the pitch, and you think he'd be playing in the Championship. I don't know if we'd set up particularly differently in terms of a formation perspective in the Championship, would we, Joe?
No, I think it's difficult, but we play with such an asymmetrical style, don't we, that you're going to need to allow Davis to do that, but you're going to end up with maybe a sort of, I know the talk of Cameron Burgess being excellent in the comments, and I do agree with that, but I think you're just probably going to need somebody with slightly more athletic prowess on that side to be able to cover that, so they drop into more as a sort of orthodox left centre back role, as opposed to a centre back that drifts over, really. So I do think that Leif Davis is going to play a similar role to what he does. Do they have 9 subs in the Championship? Or is it still 7 there as well? If they have 9 there as well, it'll be quite handy, because I think we're struggling, because he's normally struggling with 10 to 15 minutes left, but we've had Donatian on the bench because he's sort of can cover both sides, as we mentioned earlier. But maybe if you could have a Greg Lee on the bench every game who can sort of relieve that last 15 minutes for him, it'd be more helpful, and he maybe could sort of dominate that side of the pitch as he has been doing for us. I don't see a huge amount of difference between the sort of top sides in the League One and the bottom sides in the Championship, really. Like when you think if we were to go up, sort of that bottom 8 teams, I don't really see that there's a big. I don't think we'd have to do a huge amount to stay up, if that makes sense. If we go up, it's going to be a lot harder getting out of this division than it will be staying out of it. Getting out of it is the big challenge, and like you say, you look at it when we're talking, is 94 points going to be enough this season? Well, it should be, and if it's not, you're incredibly unlucky, and whoever out of Sheffield Wednesday, Plymouth and us doesn't get the automatic position is going to have to lift themselves up off the floor, because it is incredibly harsh that one of us three isn't going to be promoted, and even Barnsley is sort of tracking right up there.
Yeah, absolutely. There's plenty of chat going on. Mullet's still banging on about his hold. He's getting at least one person to back him up. Alex reckons he's also used the word
Mullet's burner account.
Nigel just giving Harness a bit of a break here, saying that it's a tough ask as a starter for Harness without the confidence of being a regular starter. Which it's fair enough, and also it was a little bit of a shock to be brought off at half time. I suppose if he wasn't doing his job, then he's not doing his job. Frank, saying that it was appalling, and one thing is consistently good at poor passing. He wasn't. He was just off it, wasn't he? Basically, in the first half, his passing was off. Obviously, his shooting was off from his chance, and also it just seemed like he didn't have the understanding wasn't there with the people around him for obvious reasons, because he hasn't been playing with them for a little while. Joe says hopefully Harness can score against Charlton and redeem himself. As I say, it just remains to be seen that if Broadhead's fit or not. Obviously, we're all hoping that he will be. Chris here saying that people are a bit harsh regarding Harness.
To be fair, I didn't watch the game. I listened on the radio to it, so I don't want to be. I wasn't at the game, but it seemed as soon as the team was announced that Harness was in it, there was an incredible amount of criticism, and then through the first half, everything that went wrong seemed to be down on Harness. Where he missed a chance, but you've got to be in those positions to get those chances, and he made a really good run off the left hand side to end up on that ball, and he's pulled the shot wide, but on another day that goes in, and it's a brilliant goal. But I think Harness is just one of those players that is just a bit up and down, but he's been a good signing for us, I think. And I think in the first half of the season, and up until that bad injury he got in the Papa John's Trophy, wasn't it? I think he got a bad injury. I think up until that point he'd been excellent for us, and came up. Well, he's still scored 7 goals or so. It's not like he's just totally failed. Like I say, it's just a shame.
Yeah. So Zorro Arc, I'm going to say Zorro Arc. Apologies if they're not how you want me to pronounce it. Could you see Harness in the Championship, though? I suppose
we've got a Championship squad, haven't we? I think anyone in our squad could cope in a Championship because it's such a high-quality squad.
Yeah. But then, the Portsmouth fans did sort of say when he signed that he is very much an up-and-down kind of player, and that's been proven. Just a quick one from me in terms of I must remember to do the plugs, so I'll do these before I forget. The pre-match show this week is the normal duo. It's Rich and Seb. It's coming out on Friday morning, I believe, so it's not going to be live this week. Friday morning for your pre-match. If you guys just want to stick some quick predictions in the chat for the Cheltenham game, 4-4 maybe, just plucking it out of the air. So I think we're all sort of hoping that we get back onto the winning run. But Cheltenham are a funny old team. They're a bit up and down themselves, aren't they? They'll pick a score. God knows, umpteen goals away at was it Shrewsbury they beat a couple of weeks ago, and that was obviously an away game. But so hopefully we can get back to winning ways. Rich and Seb is on pre-match on Friday morning, and then we're going old school Flagship live Sunday night 8 p.m. with Benjamin Bloom and David Diamond. The two are back in tandem. Yeah, indeed. So those two guys will be doing your Sunday night 8 p.m. live show. And obviously Rich and sorry, go on, Joe.
Well, I was just remembering as well that for anyone who's wondering how the big game in the Women's League was going between Watford and Oxford tonight, like the game against Oxford at Felixstowe last Sunday, this has been postponed as well for a waterlogged pitch, so that the drama drags on.
Indeed. Right, we've just got a few predictions here, and then we'll probably wrap it up for the evening. But thanks everyone for joining. As ever, appreciate you coming on and listening to us two prattle on about little and nothing. Neil's gone for a 3-1 victory at the weekend. Zorro Ark has gone for a 3-2. Crikey, we're going to start shipping goals in. I mean, that'll be fun. Bond to get a brace. I noticed he's scored a couple now, hasn't he? He scored the last one of 5 or 6, wasn't it, the other day? And he got one on Monday. Nigel's gone for a solid 2-0, as has David. Michael, I don't know who you're referring to here, but a win for Town. Oh, loads of offsides for Bonn. Yeah, I don't know if we play a particularly high line, but and has he been starting games, Bonn, for Charlton, Joe? I know he's been on the bench
I think
quite a lot.
I think he'd started the first few when he was there, but then he just hadn't scored in the first 10 or 11 games. So I assume he'd been dropped to the bench because it looked like that, and then all of a sudden he's popped up with sort of like 2 goals in the last 3 games, which is good for him. I'm glad to see him scoring a couple of goals. Hopefully he won't get one on Saturday.
Yeah, I think he really struggled to endear himself to the Charlton fans, didn't he, to start with? I don't think they were particularly impressed with his signing, and then certainly not with his first few appearances and performances for the team. Flim Flam's gone for 4-0 until additional time, so it'll be 5-0 in the end, maybe then Flim Flam, yeah. Nick's gone for... There's a lot of goals people are predicting here. Nick's gone for 4 goals. Frank's gone for 4 goals. Matt's gone for a more conservative 3, as has Kev. Jules, there you go. 5-1 if Broadhead is back, and only the 3-1 if he isn't. So
I'll take 1-0.
It wouldn't get on the bus from the training ground to the ground for your breakfast for 1-0. Cool. Well, thank you very much for your time, Joe. Oh, everyone, thumbs, subscribe. You know the drill. Something about algorithms. So yeah, if you could all just give us a thumbs up wherever you're watching, whether it be through Facebook or through YouTube or wherever, give us a thumbs up. If you could subscribe, that'd be absolutely fantastic. Thank you for your time, Joe. Apologies you won't be able to get there at the weekend, but
I'll be at all the other games for the rest of the season. It's
a lucky omen, hopefully, that with you not being there. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for your time. Hopefully see you at the weekend. I'm going to try and get in the Greyhound to have a beer with Rich and the guys and Dave before the match on Saturday. So I know Rich and Seb will do the plugs for the Greyhound in their pre-match show. But yeah, by all means, try and pop along and see a few of us in there. So failing that, up the town, and here's to a good weekend.